All right, you ever wake up one morning and think to yourself, I want to learn how to do something that I've never done before? That's kind of what happened to me about 6 weeks ago. I was riding with Mello in my car, and suddenly I had this idea that I wanted a fish. I hadn't owned any pets in like 20 years. I haven't had a pet since I lived at my parents' house, and even before then, I think I was maybe 12 the last time I had a goldfish. But I just had this idea that I just wanted to have a beta fish inside of a tiny enclosure, right? Tiny little place for him to live. And I was going to just use the packaging he came in wherever he's at right now. I don't even know where he is. I lost my beta fish. He's somewhere around here. Um, but since then, I got another tank, right? I put the beta fish in a 2.5-inch tank. From there, he got moved to a 6 gallon tank. And yesterday, I picked up my third tank for, I think it's 10 gallons. And so the evolution has been evolving for the past few months. But yesterday morning, I woke up, and I'll tell you guys this much. Before this week, I didn't even know what a paludarian was. Every time I type that word into anything, whether it be ChatGPT or Google or I'm writing it, it comes up as a word that doesn't exist. And I would have told you I don't know what that is, even though I've kind of seen them around in the background of the aquarium world. But it's the half terrarium, half aquarium. And let me tell you guys, the learning curve for building these things, these elaborate artistic pieces, because that's what they are. They're pure art. And I really wanted to get into this. But the documentation and the videos for doing this are very, very small. Don't get me wrong, they're out there, but they're not giving you what I need in order to be able to create one from scratch. So I went to the river bottom over on the Salt River on my way to the store called, what was it called? Chlorophyll Corner. It's the only store in Arizona that I know of that sells to hobbyists like myself. And so they have the plants, the fish, the enclosures. They have everything there. It's an incredible store. It's on McKillops and Lindsay Road, way on the other side of town from where I live. So I walked in and I felt like I was in a fairy tale. And the staff there was really helpful. And they used to be right up here on Priest and Elliott. And I went looking for them a few weeks ago because I'd never gone into that store before. It looked really cool from the outside, but again, I didn't have any interest in anything. I didn't really have any hobbies. I didn't have time to be able to spend because I spent hours and hours and hours. Anyhow, the point of this is that sometimes when you show up at work and you don't know what to do, this is what it feels like. You're trying to do something with little to no help, and either you learn how to do it or you fail miserably. Like right now, I've got my driftwood soaking, I've got my rocks soaking, I have kind of a layout of the rocks over here that I'm going to use, but I'm going to empty out this 6 gallon tank, and I already emptied out the 2.5 gallon tank. I'm not going to have three active tanks at my house. That's crazy. I don't want to have that many tanks because doing water, even partial water exchanges, takes a lot of time. It's messy, and I just don't have the time to run three active tanks. So I'm gonna empty out the 6, load up the 10 with the art, and see what happens. So anyhow, I'm off on a tangent. First 4 minutes, right? Let's get into the video because this video is going to knock your socks off. They say Gen Z doesn't want to work, but what they really mean is we don't want to be abused for $16 an hour. Every job listing now feels like a parody. They want the wisdom of a grandparent, the stamina of an Olympian, and the availability of someone with no life or soul. And in return, they hand you a paycheck that wouldn't cover your therapy bill for surviving the job. This isn't just exploitation. It's delusion wrapped in a corporate buzzwords. That's pretty good. But yes, this is the model of the employee that they want. They want you to show up on day one with all of the skills, the experience, the knowledge, and don't forget the drive. Remember, they're looking to hire people who will work like the owner, but will take the paycheck of an allowance. $20 a week is all they want to pay you. Not even enough to buy yourself a solid McDonald's meal. And then they look at you like you're stupid when you say to them, this isn't enough money. They're like, well, why aren't you grateful for the scraps and the fish heads? And then they look at you like you're the most worthless piece of crap. Like when I worked at Kroger's, the front end manager was this way, and she still works there. Oh, I hire them with all of the hopefulness in the world that they're going to be good workers. And then she finds out that they're all the same. They show up to work, minimum wage, minimum effort, and that just doesn't sink through to any manager I've ever met in my entire life. All right, talking point number one. Employers want you to be 20 years old with 30 years of experience, speak 5 languages, work weekends, manage crisis, and train yourself, all while being cheerful and flexible. It's not a job listing. It's a delusional wish list written by a CEO who thinks that burnout is a character flaw. That part of teaching yourself, that's the hardest part of learning to do anything. Yesterday, I sat in this chair for hours and hours and hours. And then once I was done looking at, I don't know, maybe 50 videos, I finally had some idea of what I wanted to do, right? I knew I wanted a water area for the tank. I also knew I wanted a planting area for my for the garden. So the paludarium is going to be 25% water and then 75% exotic garden. I even have a fly catcher that's going to be part. I'll show you guys the plants that I'm going to be using in a little while, just in a short, just so you guys can see what I'm planning on doing. Anyhow, so you sit there and you train and you train and you train. And you're training your mind to think in a way in which it's never thought before, right? That's how I got into computers. I was 17 years old. It was my first computer job. I knew nothing about computers. I wouldn't be buying my own computer for years after that because I was broke. And I just had to start training my mind. And the way I started training my mind in computers was I would spend hours in Photoshop just drawing things, rendering different pictures and distorting them and twisting them with different filters. And from there, I went on to start coding my own HTML, and then I ended up landing a job. My first job was with engineering, and from there, I moved on to networking. So, the very first generation of Cisco switches and 3Com switches, HP switches, that's where I started out my career. And so, in the networking closet. So, I spent time. I learned how to terminate fiber optic cable and run Cat 5. That's where I spent the first 5 years of my technology career is just working in the closets. And then you just transition out of the closet to a desk job. From there, I started drawing Visio diagrams of the entire network. So I'd have to draw these lines from the core switch to the edge switches, leading out FDDI fiber optic lines that run between the major outlets back into the main area where we had different ISPs and load balancing. So, yeah, I had to do all of this. And again, there was no one there to teach me. It was either train yourself or you didn't have a job. And so all of my technology skills just kept growing and growing as I needed. And that's what I felt yesterday. While I was sitting here staring at these videos and looking at my empty tank and then looking at the videos and then trying to plot what I was learning and engaging your creative juices into this endeavor. because that's what it takes in today's marketplace. You have to show yourself how to do everything. Everything about my current job, I pretty much had to train myself or figure it out. And that's a thing that they want in today's society. But if you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the wisdom, there's nothing to draw from. And that's why employers don't want to hire people without 5 to 10 years of experience. If you don't have that experience, they don't want to pay you while you're getting that experience. They want the plug and play worker. Talking point number 2. You're asked to juggle 5 different jobs for the pay of one or less. They want senior level work for intern level wages, and if you ask about a raise, they suggest they suggest pizza in the break room or a team bonding as your reward. You're not underqualified, you're underpaid. And that's the big thing, is that you are terribly underpaid. And by its very nature, you're underpaid because the last thing that they want is long term employees. They don't want to pay you large wages, they don't want to offer you a retirement plan. They want you, your experience, and you to do the job until you burn out. And burnout will happen. It's happening all around me at my job, and I've seen it get real ugly. I've seen burnout go from not only just physical exhaustion, but mental exhaustion. And while you're juggling the physical and mental exhaustion, you're also dealing with no job security, and you're also dealing with your financial problems. Because low paychecks mean financial problems. In today's world, the average person's going to need between $150,000 to $250,000 a year in order to survive. Because think of this. If the top executives are making millions of dollars worth of salary every year, millions, and you're making $20,000 a year, but you still have to live in the world that the executives live in with your $20,000 a year, how much life are you really buying? None. Because they know what it costs to live. They know that a halfway decent home now costs $1 million. You're not going to make $1 million even if you live to be 1,000. I know I won't. I mean, I live paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, and that's it. There's no escaping it. I can't just hit the button that launches my escape pod from slave Earth, because it doesn't work like that. We all have to stay here. And the fact that you're receiving intern level wages means, what does that mean? Listen to that. Intern level wages means they want you to work for free. And you're not working for a greater good, right? They want you working for free for the 6 months that they have you. And at the end of that, boom, they hit the button and fire you and get someone hopefully better for less money. That's what they want in today's workplace. Unfortunately, they're finding less and less people to do that. So what's their answer to this? Nobody wants to work anymore. And then they hang their face and like, oh man, if could just find motivated workers out there and then pay them nothing. Well, when you're looking for crap, you get crap. That's why we go to Goodwill. Every once in a while, you're going to walk into a Goodwill and find one thing that's worth it. But for the most part, Goodwill's just become a giant junkyard. Overpriced crap. And that's what corporations think of workers. Overpriced crap. So, rather than think of it that way, they just consider it all to be crap and they just pick the best of the crap. Simple as that. Talking point number 3. The moment you question the absurdity, you're labeled ungrateful, lazy, or entitled. But it's not entitlement to want a living wage, training, or dignity. It's survival. And the fact that asking for fair pay feels rebellious, that's the real red flag. Asking for a living wage means that you're trying to stir the bucket, right? When you walk into a job and you just laugh at them when they say the job pays $16 an hour, and they look at you like, well, why aren't you getting down on your knees and kissing my feet? Because $16 is all we have to offer. And you ask themselves, let me ask you this. If you were to offer $16 to any of your executives, what would they say to you? They wouldn't even say anything. They'd just walk out of the job interview. And a lot of corporations do this where when they put the actual job on the listing, they will not put a wage there. And simply put, that's a tactic to get more people into those job interviews. Because if you or I see $16 an hour and see a master's degree with 10 years of experience on a job, we're expecting to get an adult sized paycheck. Nope. They offer child sized paychecks with that job description. And you know what? If you won't take that job, they'll find some sucker who will. They always find someone who's desperate enough. And that's what they're actually doing in that job interview. They're testing your desperation. And if you walk in there feeling rebellious, feeling like you want to buy a house with this job, you want to buy a new car, and you want to get married, they'll look at you like, well, I guess it's not going to work out for you. You would be bored at this job. I've gotten that dozens and dozens and dozens of times at job interviews. Oh no, you'd be bored at this job. This job isn't for you. And you walk out and you're like, I wasted my time. I had to buy a bus ticket. I had to get dressed. And I had to sit here while you guys interviewed for the same position 4 times before you brought me in. It is absolutely a joke what the working world has become out there. They don't care. They're looking for someone. They may not find exactly what they want, but again, when they make these postings, it's more of a wish list than anything else. And it is delusional in a very real sense that someone's going to walk in there and take that job. And I can only think of one time where I saw a guy walk in, and I was working for the engineering college. He walked in, he just wanted the experience. He was working on a mechanical engineering degree. His wife was very, very wealthy. So his wife bought their huge mansion in Mesa, and he just needed a 20-hour-a-week part-time job just so that he had a place to gain experience from. He drove a really fancy car. He lived in a very fancy part of town. He didn't need the job. And that's who they're also looking for. They're looking for people who don't actually need the money. Or they'll say this to you in the job interview. Well, we know it's not a lot of money, but we're hoping to find someone that likes helping people, or it's not about the money. Well, I'll tell you this, it's about the money. Everything in the world's about the money. And the very top people at the corporation will tell you it's about the money. They don't run businesses because they enjoy losing money. It's all about the money. And every corporation will exist as long as they're making record profits. Because the moment they're not making record profits, well, what's the point? What's the point of running a failed Pizza Hut or a Big Lots or a Red Lobster? What's the point if it's not going to make you insanely rich? These people have such a diseased mind when it comes to business that you can't stop the greed. All they see is dollar signs. When they wake up every morning, their eyes are dollar signs. If they can't make the world a worse place every single day, then they're not interested. They're not interested in participating in a world that isn't there just for the sole reason to make them rich. So the phrase, no one wants to work anymore, it's not applicable. It's no one wants to be exploited anymore by these evil corporations. Because when you show up at Pound Town at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning and you rub your little spot with your hand just to make sure it's still there, and you realize, oh my God, at the Death Star, everyone gets gets love. And if you're sitting at an Amazon warehouse and you see fleece out of the corner of your eye and you know things are about to get ugly, there's no way to get out of it. You got to keep paying your subscription services. You got to keep paying for the air you breathe, for the bed you sleep in, and your Promobile that's about to explode. In fact, yesterday, Jennifer C in the comments was talking about what it's like to do DoorDash in a Promobile without air conditioning when it's 110 degrees. I was also talking to Blue. Blue's a mailman, and she was out there flinging her wares, walking around in 110-degree heat. Life isn't easy for us. And for them to keep throwing the phrase, nobody wants to work around like it has some weight, it disgusts me. But anyhow, let's get into our final monologue here. If you're tired, underpaid, and constantly question your worth, you're not the problem. The system is. They want gods for peanuts, loyalty for leftovers, and gratitude for garbage. So next time they ask you why you're not more motivated, just smile and say, because I finally woke up. Woke up to what? Pulling out your pant pockets and looking at the lint and wondering when it's going to turn into gold? No. You just have to put your head down in a world that doesn't like you because you're poor. Remember, the less you have and the less exploitable you are, the more invisible you are on the people that depend on exploiting you so they can have everything that this world has to offer, while you get just enough to not keel over.